Imagine waking up to find your entire life savings, money you put into a supposedly safe digital vault, has completely vanished overnight. In just 72 hours, one arrogant founder erased $40 billion from the world. It was not a glitch, and it was not an accident. This is the catastrophic collapse of Terra Luna. Welcome to Silicon Postmortem. The year was 2021. The world was gripped by a financial frenzy unlike anything we had ever seen before. Trillions of dollars in stimulus money flooded the global economy, and interest rates were sitting at rock bottom. Traditional savings accounts were paying less than 1% a year. People were desperate for a way to grow their wealth. And then they looked at the internet. They saw teenagers becoming millionaires overnight by buying digital pictures of apes and Joe coins based on dogs. The fear of missing out, or FOMO, was absolutely intoxicating. But for the average person, a teacher, a nurse, or a retiree, the crypto market was terrifying. It was way too volatile. A coin could double in value on Monday and lose 90% of its value by Friday. To solve this massive problem of volatility, the crypto industry popularized something called stablecoins. The concept was incredibly simple. For every one digital coin issued, the company would hold exactly one real US dollar in a highly secure bank vault. This meant the digital coin would always be worth exactly $1. It offered the high-tech speed of cryptocurrency with the boring, rock-solid safety of traditional cash. People could finally park their money in the digital world without waking up to a heart attack. But a young, highly ambitious developer named Kwon looked at this system and decided it was flawed. Kwon was a Stanford University computer science graduate who had previously worked for massive tech giants like Apple and Microsoft. He was brilliant, but more than that, he was exceptionally arrogant. He believed that relying on real-world banks and physical US dollars defeated the entire rebellious purpose of cryptocurrency. He wanted to build a stable coin that was completely untethered from the traditional banking system. A stable coin backed entirely by computer code. In 2018, he co-founded Terraform Labs and eventually introduced a brand new ecosystem. At the center of this ecosystem was a new stable coin called UST. But here is the critical detail that would eventually doom millions of investors. UST was not backed by cash. It was not backed by gold. It was an algorithmic stablecoin. Its value was supposed to be kept at exactly $1 through a complex, automated balancing act with a secondary, highly volatile cryptocurrency called Luna. To explain it simply, imagine a digital seesaw. On one side, you have UST, which must always equal $1. On the other side, you have Luna, whose price constantly moves up and down. The computer code was programmed so that you could always burn $1 worth of Luna to create 1 UST, or burn 1 UST to create $1 worth of Luna. This infinite printing and burning mechanism was designed to automatically absorb any shock in the market. Kwon pitched it as an unbreakable, perfect financial machine. But having a perfect machine does not matter if nobody uses it. Kwon needed people to buy into his ecosystem. He needed billions of dollars to make the algorithm strong. So, he created the ultimate bait. It was called the Anchor Protocol. The Anchor Protocol acted like a decentralized crypto bank. Kwon told the world that if they bought his UST stablecoin and deposited it into Anchor, they would receive a guaranteed, fixed interest rate of 20% per year. Let that sink in for a moment. 20%. In traditional finance, if a Wall Street hedge fund promises a guaranteed 20% return, it is immediately investigated as a Ponzi scheme. It is mathematically unsustainable. But in the wild west of the 2021 crypto boom, investors did not care about the math. They only saw the money. Word spread like wildfire. Major financial influencers on YouTube and Twitter began telling their followers that Anchor was the holy grail of passive income. Everyday retail investors emptied their traditional savings accounts. They remortgaged their homes. They took their children's college funds and poured them into the Anchor Protocol. At its peak, nearly $14 billion was locked inside this single decentralized app. Kwon was suddenly treated like a financial god. But behind the scenes, The 20% interest rate was entirely artificial. The Anchor protocol was bleeding money, and Kwon was secretly subsidizing the payouts from his company's own emergency reserves just to keep the illusion alive. The trap was fully set, and the world's most arrogant founder was about to watch his perfect machine tear itself apart. To understand how $40 billion vanished into thin air, you have to understand the fatal flaw hidden deep inside the code of the Terra ecosystem. As we covered in Act 1, traditional stablecoins hold one real US dollar in a highly secure bank vault for every digital coin they issue. If everyone decides to sell their digital coins on the exact same day, the company simply opens the bank vault and hands everyone their real dollars back. It is safe, it is regulated, and it is boring. But Kwon's UST did not have a bank vault. It had an algorithm. It relied on a dangerous, automated seesaw mechanism with its sister coin, Luna. The code was written with a golden rule. One UST could always, no matter what the market was doing, be exchanged for exactly $1 worth of Luna. If the price of UST dropped below $1, say, to 99 cents, the algorithm created a massive financial incentive for traders. A trader could buy that cheap UST for 99 cents, take it to the Terra network, and the code would automatically burn the UST and print exactly $1 worth of brand new Luna coins. The trader makes a guaranteed 1-cent profit. The supply of UST goes down, and its price naturally rises back to $1. If UST went above $1, the system worked in reverse. Traders would burn Luna to print more UST. It was an infinite printing press designed by a computer to keep the price exactly at $1. Kwon pitched this as a flawless, self-healing ecosystem. But financial experts looked at this code and saw a terrifying vulnerability. They realized that the entire $40 billion system was not backed by math. It was backed by confidence. The experts warned that if a massive panic ever broke out and everyone tried to sell their UST at the exact same time, the system would trigger a death spiral. To absorb the panic, the algorithm would be forced to print millions of new Luna coins. But if nobody wanted to buy those new Luna coins, their price would crash. To compensate for the crashing price, the algorithm would have to print even more Luna coins, faster and faster, in a desperate attempt to save UST. It would cause hyperinflation on a scale never before seen in the digital world, making both coins completely worthless in a matter of hours. When these traditional financial experts voiced their concerns online, Kwon did not listen. He did not audit the code. He did not build a safer reserve. Instead, he mocked them. His arrogance was legendary in the crypto space. He believed his algorithm was invincible. He thought he was smarter than the entire global financial system. In July of 2021, a prominent British economist named Frances Coppola publicly criticized the algorithmic stablecoin model. She tweeted that self-correction mechanisms will always fail when panicking investors are stampeding for the exit. It was a completely valid, educated warning. Kwon publicly replied to her with a tweet that would soon go down in history. He wrote, quote, "I do not debate the poor on Twitter, and sorry, I do not have any change on me for her at the moment." End quote. He constantly insulted his critics. He called other developers idiots. In another interview, just days before the collapse, he casually stated that 95% of crypto startups are going to die, adding, quote, "There's also entertainment in watching companies die too." He had absolutely no idea that his own company was about to become the most entertaining and devastating spectacle the financial world had ever seen. The stage for the disaster was perfectly set by May of 2022. The broader crypto market was already starting to bleed. Bitcoin was dropping, and investors were getting nervous. But inside the Terra ecosystem, everything felt safe. The Anchor protocol was still paying out its magical 20% interest rate, and nearly $14 billion was sitting inside it. But to keep UST stable across the entire internet, Terraform Labs relied on massive liquidity pools. Think of a liquidity pool like a giant currency exchange bucket at an airport. One of the most important buckets for Kwon was called the Curve 3 pool on the Ethereum network. Inside this giant digital bucket, there were hundreds of millions of UST coins, mixed perfectly with hundreds of millions of other, safer stablecoins. As long as the bucket was full and balanced, anyone could easily swap their UST for a different stablecoin without moving the price. But on the evening of Saturday, May 7th, 2022, Kwon made a critical, fatal mistake. At 9:44 p.m., Terraform Labs voluntarily withdrew $150 million of UST out of the Curve 3 pool. They did this because they were preparing to move the funds to a brand new, upgraded pool the following week. But by taking that massive amount of money out, they made the bucket incredibly shallow. The Curve 3 pool was suddenly unbalanced and highly vulnerable to manipulation. If a massive financial whale wanted to attack the Terra ecosystem, this was the exact moment to strike. 13 minutes later, 9:57 p.m., the first domino fell. An unknown, anonymous wallet, which internet sleuths simply call Wallet, suddenly dumped 85 million UST into the fragile Curve pool, swapping all for safe USDC coins. It was the largest single swap that specific pool had ever seen. The bucket violently tipped over. There was suddenly way too much UST in the pool and not enough of the other coins. Because of the sheer size of the dump, the automated pool had to drop the price of UST to attract buyers. The perfect $1 peg broke. UST dropped to 98.5 cents. A drop of 1.5 cents sounds completely meaningless to an outsider. But in the world of stablecoins, it is the equivalent of a massive earthquake. Stablecoins are supposed to be permanently locked at $1. If it drops to 98 cents, it means the unbreakable code is broken. Over the next 30 minutes, another anonymous account dumped 75 million more UST into the pool across 3 rapid-fire transactions. The bucket was now severely broken. Terraform Labs panicked. At 10:52 p.m., they withdrew another $100 million from the pool, desperately trying to rebalance the ratios. But the damage was already done. The blood was in the water, and the internet was waking up. By Sunday morning, May 8th, rumors were spreading across Twitter and Reddit like a wildfire. Everyday retail investors, the teachers, the nurses, the college students who had put their life savings into the Anchor protocol, saw that UST was no longer worth $1. Panic is a highly contagious disease. When you believe your safe savings account is suddenly unsafe, you do not wait around to see what happens. You run for the exit. A massive bank run began. Over the course of the weekend, terrified investors yanked over $2 billion out of the Anchor protocol. They took their UST, rushed to the digital exchanges, and tried to sell it for anything else. Bitcoin, Ethereum, traditional cash. They just wanted out. The selling pressure was immense. UST struggled to hold 99 cents. Then it dropped to 98 cents again. The algorithm was trying to fight back, burning the UST and printing Luna, but there were simply too many people trying to sell at the exact same time. Kwon, sitting behind his computer screen, refused to admit defeat. On Sunday evening, as the panic reached a fever pitch, he sent out another arrogant tweet to his hundreds of thousands of followers. He wrote, "Deploying more capital. Steady, lads." He promised that his company was injecting $1.5 billion from their own emergency reserves to buy up the excess UST and force the price back to $1. For a brief moment, it worked. The price ticked back up. The loyal believers on Twitter cheered him on, calling him a genius. They thought the storm had passed. But the $1.5 billion Band-Aid was nothing compared to the tidal wave of fear that was about to hit them. When Monday morning arrived, the broader financial markets opened in the red. The panic that had started in the dark corners of crypto Twitter had now reached mainstream financial news. Everyone everywhere knew that UST was bleeding. The bank run turned into an absolute stampede. Billions more poured out of Anchor. The exchanges could not handle the volume. The seesaw finally snapped. The algorithm, completely overwhelmed by the selling pressure, shifted into overdrive. It began doing exactly what Francis Coppola and the financial experts had warned it would do. To try and absorb the billions of UST being dumped on the market, the computer code started printing Luna. First, it printed millions of new coins. But because nobody wanted to buy Luna during a panic, the price of Luna started to crash. On Monday morning, Luna fell by 17%. Because Luna was now worth less, the algorithm had to print even more of it to absorb the same amount of UST. The printing press began spinning out of control. Millions turned into billions. The infinite loop had been triggered. The digital machine was eating itself alive, and the $40 billion market cap was about to be completely vaporized. By Tuesday, May 10th, the algorithmic seesaw was no longer a financial tool. It had become a weapon of mass financial destruction. The bank run on the Anchor protocol was unstoppable. Terrified investors were dumping billions of UST onto the open market. The algorithm, blindly following its programming, desperately tried to absorb the selling pressure by printing brand new Luna coins. To understand the sheer scale of the devastation, you have to look at the math of hyperinflation. Before the panic began, there were roughly 340 million Luna coins in existence. Because the supply was limited, each coin was highly valuable, peaking at $119. But as UST lost its $1 peg, the algorithm began to print. On Tuesday, it printed tens of millions of new Luna coins. But the selling pressure was too heavy. So on Wednesday, it printed billions. By Thursday, the computer code had completely lost its mind. It was printing billions of new coins every single hour. By the time the dust settled, the algorithm had flooded the market with 6.5 trillion Luna coins. If you take a valuable asset and suddenly multiply its supply by tens of thousands of percent, the value instantly evaporates. Luna went into a terrifying free fall. In a matter of days, the coin plummeted from $80 down to $20. Then it broke below $1. Traders watched in absolute horror as their portfolios drained in real time. The coin fell to a single penny, and then it fell to a fraction of a single penny. At the exact same time, UST, the so-called stable coin that was supposed to be a permanent safe haven, collapsed. It fell from 98 cents to 50 cents, then 20 cents, then 10 cents. The $40 billion ecosystem was dead. Major cryptocurrency exchanges around the world, including Binance, stepped in and completely halted trading. They pulled the plug on the market to stop the bleeding. Shortly after, the developers behind the Terra network did the unthinkable. They officially halted the blockchain. They turned the entire system off. The perfect financial machine was officially a corpse. But this was not just a story about lines of computer code failing or rich venture capitalists losing a bad bet. Behind every single crashing chart was a real human being. The human devastation was catastrophic. On the popular website Reddit, the Terra Forum, which was once filled with memes and arrogant celebrations of wealth, turned into a digital graveyard. The situation became so incredibly dark and dangerous that the forum moderators had to permanently pin international suicide prevention hotlines to the very top of the page. Thousands of posts flooded the internet from everyday people whose lives were completely ruined. A teacher posted that he had lost the down payment for his family's first home. A retiree admitted they had placed their entire life savings into the Anchor protocol because they trusted the promised 20% interest rate. College students had their tuition money completely vaporized. These were not greedy gamblers. These were retail investors who were sold the lie of a perfectly safe, risk-free digital bank account. And what happened to Kwon? Where was the arrogant genius who proudly stated that he did not debate the poor, and who found entertainment in watching companies die? As his empire burned to the ground and millions of people lost their life savings, Kwon went silent. And then he ran. As South Korean prosecutors launched a massive investigation into fraud and tax evasion, Kwon vanished. He flew to Singapore, but by the time authorities arrived, he was already gone. His disappearance triggered a global manhunt. Interpol, the international police organization, issued a red notice, marking him as a wanted fugitive across 195 countries. For months, he played a game of cat and mouse with international authorities. He reportedly hid in Dubai and then vanished into the shadows of Serbia. But you cannot outrun a $40 billion disaster forever. In March of 2023, Nearly a year after the catastrophic collapse, authorities finally caught up with him. Kwon was arrested at an airport in the European country of Montenegro. He was caught trying to board a private jet headed for Dubai, using a forged passport from Costa Rica. The man who once believed he was smarter than the entire global financial system was finally in handcuffs, facing decades in prison for masterminding one of the largest financial disasters in modern history. The collapse of Terra Luna serves as a chilling, unforgettable lesson. In the world of finance, if something sounds too good to be true, it almost always is. And when blind trust is handed to arrogant founders with unregulated technology, it is always the everyday people who pay the ultimate price. Thank you for watching this forensic deep dive. If you want to uncover the true stories behind the world's biggest corporate failures, massive financial scams, and the dark side of the tech industry, hit the subscribe button right now.